Morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it may be, in whatever part of the world you may be in. This is Dr. Don with a daily LightPoint. We are exploring this week this premise of transforming limitations into possibilities, transforming limitations into possibilities. And we're unpacking that this week, and I've been thinking about what's required for us as leaders in our lives, personally and professionally, to examine, explore, and essentially transform limitations, those things that we perceive as potential barriers. How do we transform them into opportunities? And one thing that comes to mind is the premise of being solution oriented or adopting a solution oriented mindset. How many people in our lives have we encountered where it's oftentimes woe is me, right? They view their circumstances and situations, while sometimes very difficult, they view them as limitations that disable them, that hold them back. They view them to the extent that they feel stuck. Those limitations become so profound. And I recognize that part of overcoming or transforming those limitations requires us to have a solution-oriented mindset. Solution-oriented mindset, well, that's easier said than done. How do I view the obstacles that I face, the problems that I face through a solution-oriented mindset? That means I have to really possess two things that really stand out for me: resilience and creativity. Write that down: resilience and creativity. Solution-oriented mindset requires me to practice resilience and creativity. Resilience means I have the courage, I have the strength, I have the fortitude to work through the challenges that I'm facing, to stay the course. But I'm creative enough to examine the possibilities that are within what I perceive to be a potential problem or barrier that I'm facing, the possibilities in that. I think I spoke about, I use a really basic example in a LightPoint, uh, I don't know how many weeks ago now, where I talked about this mindset that we carry with us and when we're facing obstacles. And I use the example of being stuck in traffic and what you can do at that time versus leaning into the frustration of being stuck in traffic versus seizing that opportunity to do something productive. But I think in the context of solution orientation, sometimes it requires us to dig a little deeper. It's not always the obvious thing I can do: make a phone call, catch up with family, listen to a podcast. Those are a little more lower hanging fruit stuff that you can do in the midst of adversity. But what happens when these limitations, these barriers, these problems that we face require us to get a little more creative in terms of how we transform our circumstances? So I think solution orientation means that not only are we resilient, we have to think about creative ways to examine the problem before us, understand the potential opportunities that are created in the midst of those circumstances, and then take action on them. Solution-oriented mindset. My resolution for my circumstances is buried within the depths of the problem, and oftentimes it requires us to think creatively. What can I do different? What can I do better? How can I influence my outcomes even in the midst of adversity? Creativity. I want to unpack that further in our next light point. How do I trigger the creative side of my brain when my survival instincts are kicked in because I'm facing adversity? You want me to be solution oriented. You want me to be resilient and creative. How do I trigger that thought process when I'm attempting to transform these limitations? With that being said, thank you for tuning in. We'll continue to unpack this idea of transforming limitations into possibilities. It starts with the solution-oriented mindset, driving resilience, leveraging your creativity in order to do so. We'll talk soon. Real leaders, real talk, real time.